Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. My name is Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. Russians continue to fire at Ukrainian cities. Missiles fall on the residential districts of Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Mykolaiv and many other places. Meanwhile, representatives of Amnesty International in the latest report stated that the Ukrainian military is threatening the civilian population by stopping the Russian invasion. This caused a wave of indignation on the part of the Ukrainian authorities. For 163 days, Ukraine has been resisting the Russian invasion. Meanwhile, Amnesty International, in its latest report, indicates that the Ukrainian military is violating the law of armed conflict by deploying equipment and weapons in schools, hospitals, and residential neighborhoods, as well as by carrying out attacks from densely populated areas. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, said that the organization was trying to amnesty a country that was an aggressor and shifted responsibility to the victim. Today, Russian missiles hit the bus stop in Toretsk. 8 people were killed. As a result, multi-story residential apartment was damaged. The Church of St. Panteleimon is also damaged. The priest was injured. It was a deliberate attack by the Russian occupiers, cynical and deliberate. They knew exactly where they were hitting and they probably wanted people to suffer. But there are no reports about this. The Ukrainian office of Amnesty International was not involved in the preparation of the report and strongly dissociates itself from the thesis contained in it. We have done our best to minimize the distribution of this text. We asked the authors to send us all versions of the material, which unfortunately did not happen. We persuaded them to ask for an official comment from the Ukraine Ministry of Defense, but unfortunately they did not wait for a reply and published the text without this comment. We categorically refused to publish this report on our website and translate it into Ukrainian because of its one-sidedness. Amnesty International does not want to spread the truth to the world. It is about creating a false balance between the perpetrator and the victim, between a country that is destroying thousands of civilians and entire cities, and a country that is desperately defending itself by saving its inhabitants and the entire continent from this attack. Meanwhile, the forced evacuation from the Donbas front zone, announced by the Ukrainian government, has started. We are from Lysychansk. Our village is located between the Luhansk and Donetsk regions. It has been completely destroyed. We have nowhere to live. We stayed in the basement for a month. Ukrainian soldiers evacuated us. We were ordered to leave Kramatorsk. We were promised a house in the Kirovograd region because we are a big family. We have 8 children and 3 adults. Usually people are already packed for departure. We discuss all the details in advance over the phone, but sometimes it happens that we come and people strongly refuse. Sometimes they are persuaded, but not always. They are afraid to leave home. As previously announced, the city of Mykolaiv will be closed for 2 days from this evening in order to detain people who are helping the Russian troops to shoot at key targets in the city. Today, I signed an ordinance according to which there is a curfew in Mykolaiv from 11 p.m. on August 5th till 5 a.m. on August 8th. I am asking everyone to understand and make purchases for these 2 days. 3 more ships carrying 57,000 tons of grain left the Chornomorsk port near Odessa this morning. Units are heading to Turkey, Great Britain, and Ireland. The authorities in Kiev called for the extension of the agreement to ease the Russian blockade of ports in the Black Sea to other products. This would be a real support for the Ukrainian economy destroyed by the war. In turn, today in Sochi, the presidents of Turkey and Russia met. One of the topics of the talks was the war in Ukraine. Crude oil is getting cheaper. A few weeks ago, a barrel cost $120 on the U.S. stock exchange. Now it is over $30 less. In turn, the raw material from Russia is valued at $74, which means that Vladimir Putin may soon have problems financing the barbaric attack on Ukraine. The Kremlin is struggling with difficulties in financing the war. However, data on the condition of the Russian economy are incomplete. Vladimir Putin has so far signed more than 100 bills on the introduction of the country's economy into military mode, and the Russian central bank temporarily suspended the publication of reports on the country's foreign debt and international trade in mid-April. Russia's economy is imploding. We forecast a GDP collapse of minus 30% by the end of 2022. Russia has stopped publishing data, but our tracking of exports from 20 countries to Russia gives a clue. Those exports are down over minus 50% in April 2022 from a year ago. The point is to make the Kremlin authorities aware that separating from the West will cause far-reaching perturbations, but it is difficult to count on the fact that the society will lead to political changes as a result of sanctions.
Żeby społeczeństwo na skutek sankcji.
The main source of the Kremlin's income is oil exports. Last year, the countries of the old continent imported most of their energy resources from Russia. This state of affairs, however, changed dramatically after the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. The situation of the Russian economy is also worsened by the fact that the American Brent oil, which is traditionally more expensive than the Russian oil, has been cheaper for several days. According to experts, this will also translate into fuel prices in Poland in the coming days. The question is whether today we can conclude contracts for the supply of cheaper crude oil that would supply Polish consumers. In response to numerous threats to the domestic economy, the authorities in Moscow are artificially strengthening the currency. Its current course is better than before the outbreak of the war. However, according to experts, this is an apparent process, not due to the strength of the Russian economy, but due to the market closing to external currencies. According to the Russian Central Bank, there is no risk of deflation in the country. It must be remembered that the power of the ruble currency results from the policy of strengthening the currency by the Russian Central Bank, and also from market interventions. Secondly, from the surplus, because we still have strong Russian exports of energy resources to Europe. In addition, U.S. congressmen have already submitted another bill demanding that Russia be recognized as a country sponsoring terrorism. Sanctions against countries on this list may include economic and financial measures, and even prohibiting the export of weapons to their territory and increasing export controls for civil military goods. The only tool that can bring about a change in the Kremlin's attitude is the failure of Russian military forces at the front in Ukraine. Ukraine is supported by most of the world's economic powers, while Russia seems to be lonely. The Kremlin is increasing its trade with China and India. This is far too little for this type of nation to be able to conduct a long-term, highly developed, exhaustive conflict. In July, for the first time since February, inflation in Poland did not accelerate. Its level, as in June, was 15.5%. Although the Russian economy is struggling with numerous problems, at this stage it is difficult to talk about the prospect of ending the war in Ukraine, which would lead to stabilization of world markets and the resolution of the economic crisis. And finally, the American-Polish community also remembers the anniversary of the massacre of Wola and the outbreak of the Warsaw Uprising. In Los Angeles, Polish community activists commemorated the 78th anniversary of the uprising. The celebration was attended by, among others, Henryka Frąckiewicz, who survived the slaughter of Wola. There with the details, our reporter, Małgorzata Schulz. The Polish community commemorated the 78th anniversary of the Warsaw Uprising. Some were still children during the uprising. A Los Angeles resident who was 5 years old at the time tells of her horrific memories of Wola, where the Germans murdered 40,000 to 60,000 people in the first days of the uprising from August 5th to 7th. We sat in the basement. On the fifth day, on a Saturday, they chased us out. The Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul said that there are no bandits because they were only looking for bandits, and those bandits were supposed to be the Home Army soldiers. They let us go to the courtyard in the Wawelberg house, and there, from in every window, hangs a person shot like a duck. In life, although we say we should forgive, I will not forgive them. Half of my family was killed. Later, it contributed to the fact that my parents died early, because it was too much. It was such an experience for them to save themselves, to save me, and they now want to be our friends. They want our gas, for us to help them. Poland to give them gas. They don't love us. They continue to occupy us, only in a different way. Celebrating future anniversaries of the outbreak of the Warsaw Uprising outside the country is very important in order to maintain the continuity of international culture and pass on patriotism and Polish history to younger generations. There were scouts with us here today. I was so moved by the fact that they were people just this age, the Warsaw insurgents. It was an emphasis on the existence of Poland and an emphasis that the people of Poland will fight. Among California's Polish community, World War II veterans are almost gone. Thriving organizations and a group of former soldiers of the Home Army here, which have been disbanded due to the lack of members who have passed away.
Które zostało rozwiązane z powodu braku członków, którzy odeszli. Upamiętnienie powstania warszawskiego
The commemoration of the Warsaw Uprising is linked to the fact that intellectual currents have arisen and continue to arise in the Polish nation, which have not made it possible to settle uniformly on what this Warsaw Uprising is. For me, in a sense, the discussion of whether those who organized the Warsaw Uprising had any right to do so has become boring. Let's talk about this most important thing here. People who believed in Poland rose up and were destroyed.
powstali I zostali zniszczeni.
It is important to talk about the history of the Warsaw Uprising here in the United States, information about the heroic struggle of the Poles and the losses suffered during World War II must reach a growing number of Americans. From Los Angeles for TV Republika, Małgorzata Schulz. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But from me, it's have a great weekend.